My God, you guys on that button. It's cool. I know you like it. I like it too. Got the cool sound effects going. Got the cool music going. I like it. Welcome back. February the 11th. We were on last night. Apparently last night was pretty kicky. Everybody liked it. Mental health and criminology, criminalistics, criminal behavior. Tonight we're going to be talking about something that falls on the same predictive measure, so to say. The youth, the child. No, we're not going to be talking about children in specific measures. So I think that you're going to hear words or sentences or phrases that are going to make you feel a little bit distraught. No, that's not the point. The point is understanding tonight what trauma is during a childhood series of developmental pretexts. Time span, infant, young child, young teen, older teen, young adult, how it affects the adult, what happens, where it goes, and the windows that are opened. Yeah, but the windows that are opened, the windows that remain open because they were never closed, because no one recognized it. But before we get started, we're going to do some quick checks on everything and make sure everything's rocking and rolling, make sure we're flying and zipping around. We're on YouTube, Rumble, and Kick, and X. We're looking at some stuff here. Give me a fast second to make sure I am Rumble on, and YouTube and on, and everything else on path. Looks like we're good to go. Chats are open. Chats are running. So for the actual show here, what I'm going to do is show you who the superstars are, the research assistants in this. Now, episode 1202-1126, Understanding Childhood Trauma and the Impact, Trauma and Traumas, plural, the impact on the adult, the life of the adult. So for this, Chloe Hensley, Dylan McDonald, and Zeanne Curzai. We call ZZ, just in Florida, Superstar Captain Z. But if you got any questions about the episode, please feel free. Emails are above me. I'll leave them up. Everything that we do here is academic. Academic. I said academic, like, what's an academic? I don't know. I've messed up. You tell me. It's academic based. There's not a political venue to it. There's not a partisan side or a bipartisan or anything, of that nature, so to say. So keep in mind, some of the topics we talk about are sensitive. Some of the topics we talk about are, emotional at times, but it's all purely for academic pretext. Even this show, everything's going to be loaded into our MediaFire download. As of this day, we have 364 downloads and these things are being downloaded from across the globe. Yeah. See, I can't, violate that privacy, but I can, see what country they're going to. And it's not just the United States where we're broadcasting from, countries around the globe. So without further ado, I'm going to leave that research assistant information open for a little bit longer in case anybody wants to write it down. So childhood trauma, it doesn't just stay in, the child forever because the child becomes an adult. Look at trauma as that mirror reflection. It walks with you. Even though you've coped with it, dealt with it, understood it, realized it, it's still going to walk with you, beside you. It's still a part of you. Many assume that old age brings wisdom and peace. You've adapted to it. You recognize what the trauma was, how it happened, your part in the trauma, how the actual traumatic incident came to evolve. No, just because you get older does not bring you wisdom. Just because you get older does not, give you the peace from the trauma. But the earlier wounds can be easily identified. Trauma, emotional, physical, psychological, sociological. Trauma is not just what everyone thinks as, a blunt force heavy thing falling from the sky, like an Acme Safe in a Looney Tune cartoon. The past does not fade. It sometimes, as you grow older, the past grows louder. It's kind of like trying to shut your brain down at night. Put it in the chat. You ever had a moment where you could not shut your brain down? Couldn't shut it down, couldn't slow it down, and it kept you from going to sleep. Kept you from having that good night's rest. Discussion points. What we're going to do, how we're going to cover this, we're going to cover a few discussion points, then we're going to break down the discussion points. Now, if we really want to set and discuss this topic of understanding childhood traumas or traumatic moments and how it evolves into the life of an adult, we would be here literally for decades. But we're going to cover about six or eight. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the discussion points. And before I do that, I'm going to close this. Those are the researchers above my superstar head. Why childhood pain often feels heavier in the later years and not lighter. How retirement and aging, yes, geriatricism, can trigger old memories. Make those old memories resurface. What's the trigger? The myth that time alone can heal and develop emotional wounds. Close the wound, so to say. The myth, not the factual set pretext of there's reliability here. Why loneliness in senior citizenship, old age, connects back to early relationships. Those early relationships that involve trauma. How to find support when trauma shows up decades later. Decades. So let's kind of break this first discussion point down. Why childhood feels heavier in the later years, the trauma. It's the loss of the future as a survivor. Yeah, you've survived it. You've lost the future grip that you had to overcome. Now you've overcome. You're there. You're older. When you're young, you unconsciously rely on the belief that everything will be better in the long term as you grow up. I wish I was an adult. I would go pay my rent and get out here and get out of the house and do my own thing. We've all heard it before. But trauma's a different basket. Trauma's a different trick bag. It's going to come back. It's going to be there. In later years, as time develops, the finite moment, the future shortens for you. Yes, that's why it's called youth. You're older. You're an adult. You do not have that forecast of time. Time's limited now. So you try to cherish it. But the future as a savior diminishes because you growing yourself, you act as your own savior. Thus, the comments we hear in society, I wish I was an adult. I'd go out and pay my own rent. I don't need to live here. I don't need anybody to take care of me. The children. We've all heard it before if we haven't said it ourselves. But the past, when you get older, it's raw. You remember it. You recall it. You recall the details, the new words, the new terminologies, the new defining details as you get older. Now, you reflect on it. I was truly a victim of this specific incident with these specific actions. Yeah, remember, the chats are open. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and X. And no, I'm not really monitoring the streams. I'm just monitoring the actual chats. I'll open the streams back up before the show ends, just to make sure it all closes correctly. We know how that works and how glitchy everything is. Physical vulnerabilities. All right. The mirrors of childhood, the helplessness pushing into the adult years. As the body ages, yes, you, the viewer, as the body ages, we lose physical autonomy and strength, period. We often regress into the state of dependency ourselves, similar to childhood. Senior citizen homes, depending on help, depending on aid from your friends or those in the community because of physical dilapidation. The future of that self-savior diminishes physically. But you resort back to the childhood stage of, I need assistance. I need life assistance to be able to support myself. Get out of bed. The next day, go get my groceries. And we're not talking about lazy, in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s. We're talking about senior citizens, right? The geriatric series here. We've gone from born to geriatric like that at the start of the show. But we have to open the door like this because of the one phrase, future as a savior, your own savior. Now you've comprehended everything that happened to you as a child that you could remember. And some would say, well, I don't remember my, year 1, my year 2, my year 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, there are specific elements that you will remember. They're just in the subconscious, not the present conscious at the moment. It's in the hippocampus and the limbic system. That physical frailty when you get older. Yeah. It's a trigger. It's the emotional feeling, the tie. You wish you were young again. You wish you were that child and you could fly around the globe and turn it all backwards. But yet, you do not want to experience that trauma again because you realize the damage that it caused. How retirement and aging can trigger old memories to resurface. Well, that's a direct statement, direct question. The removal, the shield, the work shield. Your brain's no longer occupied. You're not busy. You're not on the move, on the go. Now the work shield is dissipated. You were at work for decades, had a career, had a life. We're talking about, the normal attribute of society. The work's gone. The shield, those counterparts, those conversations, those interesting moments, those stressful moments where you had to be the superstar, the winner, the cognitive person on scene during the job to be the hero, make it happen, be the self-support. And while you were at the work, back in the past, because you're retired now, you were at work and you were the future savior at work for yourself. Yep. Work so you can make more money, so you can pay more bills, so you can buy more stuff, so that you have to work more, so you can pay, more bills and make more money so that you can pay for what you got. And it's a repetitive cycle. When the retirement, removes the structured noise, other noise comes in. The past. The I wish, I miss, I remember. The mind finally has the bandwidth to process when you're retired or when you're, no longer working, so to say. I can't wait to get there, but not this guy. But I know a lot of people that are retired, a lot of military, law enforcement, and I always hear that, I wish I was there. I miss it. It's boring. It's stagnant. I pushed everything aside to get this job, and now I'm no longer doing it. Pushed it all away. The loss of external identity. Who you are. Who are you? Anybody ever had somebody come up, want to talk to them and you're like, who the heck is this person? And you don't even know who they are. Yep. The loss of your own identity. Many people construct the adult identity as the direct reflection of their career. And they often reject that childhood, that teen self. Well, I was young and dumb. I'm not there anymore. I'll never be like my parents. Oh, but you probably were the exact same as your parents if you are not exactly right now the exact same of your parents. So it's that external identity loss, that stripping, that persona devolves. I mean, it goes away. It dissolves like ice cream in the sun. Now you've got time to remember the trauma. You've got time to recognize that that work shield is not there and that self-savior was put in a box for decades. Now that self-savior is there because you have time. Not unlimited time. It's limited. You're going to die someday, however you die. But the shield's no longer there. Yeah, it's just crashing away as you get older. I know some of you are thinking, this guy's depressing. Well, you're all going to get old. It's going to happen. Trust me. It is going to happen. Checking some things. Yep, the threads are running. The chats are open. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see here, hit a like, subscribe. You don't have to. We're not monetized. We're not making a nickel. The myth that time alone helps deal emotional wounds. Yep, that's one of those topics we talked about. The myth, time alone, the loneliness, numbness, the hermit, the non-extrovert, the introvert. What is it doing? Is it truly helping you? Cutting off society. Numbness is not healing. Self-numbness is not healing. That self-savior that's turning into self-numbing, it's not helping you. Often it buries the trauma in ways that the repetition and the routine of the day allow the trauma to come back. Why? because you're alone. Sometimes the emotional pretext of it. You're not there. Kind of like not being in the workplace. That work shield isn't present anymore. Then we, hear the emotional mistake and the emotional, spike of self-talking to ourselves. Well, get over it. You're retired. But in reality, that doesn't work either. It's just a, grommet or a doormat gone bad to make an attempt to stop your memory recall. Waiting for the trigger to happen. Yep. So you put that doormat out so you can catch it because you don't have that work shield anymore. You're on the move. You're on the go. You're on the get over it when you remember it. Press on. It's an emotional time capsule, so to say. The brain itself stores trauma separately. In every individual as far as coding and definition. It still goes into the amygdala, the brain, the hemisphere of the brain, hippocampus, limbic system, often time-stamped, often not time-stamped. And we're talking about the trauma from early age up to adult. So when you're an adult and you're the myth of alone, no work shield, no self-savior, that timestamp, it diminishes, but the trauma itself does not. A 70-year-old can be instantly triggered, reduced through memory, emotion, not having to experience everything, but seeing something, hearing something, a trigger, having a conversation with someone, something that's a trigger. The loneliness in old age, yes. The adulthood because of it's time to go, it's time to retire. Yep, reactivation and attachment wounds for you. It's reactivating, especially for those that had trauma to where they were, alone. No one believed you. No one was there to support you. Well, that's your own definition of thinking. No one was there to support me. No one cared. No one listened. Well, someone listened. You did. The self-savior. You talked to yourself. You pointed out the problems. You pointed out the conundrum of issues. You pointed out everything to yourself. And now you're remembering it again. It's the trigger. The time passes for the body, but the emotional center of the brain still remains the same. It ages with the body. Yes, it does. How to find support when trauma shows up a decade later. Ooh, that's a tricky one. What are you going to do? Who do you go to? You're already seeking loneliness because you're seeking, I'm by myself. I want to retire. I want to not have to worry about anything. Yep. Geriatric specific trauma therapy. That's what it is. It's not the same step or same pretext to an adult as it is a child. The approach, the terminologies, the words used. There's a program in child advocacy centers that's called Finding Words for professionals, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, even law enforcement, attend this class. But it's called Finding Words because it's specific. It's trauma memory recall specifically designed for children. All right. Physical attributes of visual recognition, stimulation to recall memory, to recall trauma. Well, the adult doesn't need that. The adult knows now. It's vital to find a therapist who understands delayed onset of trauma, delayed onset of post-traumatic stress disorder. It was trauma, but it wasn't bothering you in those busy work shield days because you had a means to separate yourself from it. Now the work shield is gone. The self-savior is out of practice because the work shield's been employed for several decades because you had to make that money to buy more stuff, to pay for the stuff so that you could get back to work and make more money, to pay for the stuff that you got so that you could save some money to buy more stuff so that you would have to go back to work and get a career to pay. It's a revolving door, just like narcotics, robbery, burglary, and a pawn shop. It's a revolving door. Yep. Somatic. Great coffee, by the way. Thank you. I like this Kit Kat stuff. What a Kit Kat creamer. That's awesome. Put it in the chat. What's better, Kit Kat creamer or chocolate or just milk? What's the best? Put it in the chat. Now, the body itself, The body-based support. Since trauma is often stored, physically in the body for decades. Yes, I said physically in the body, in your brain. Yeah, the brain, limbic system, the recovery, the hippocampus, the drawers, the amygdala, the brain. Yeah, it's still there. It's not going anywhere. You remember everything. It's just not contrastional, decisively detailed for you right now because you've chosen to move on. Everybody's heard that term. It happened, man. Move on. Get over it. Put your big boy pants on. Well, you put your big boy pants on for decades and now you're alone. Now you're retired. Now the geriatric specific trauma memory recall is at your doormat. Remember what I said, the doormat? Now it's here at your doormat. Simple things. Who does yoga? I always hear that's great for trauma, episodic memory reduction, concentration on one's body, not the problem, concentration on health, concentration on the area around you without expense of the past or expense of the future. You in the moment, the now, the self-shield, the self-savior. I didn't say work shield, did I? I said self-shield. Ways to move. There are different approaches, or practitioner taught methodologies on, geriatric specific trauma therapy. It's the episodic memory recall system, but you're still going to hold them. You just have to know how to deal with them. The grief, grief, your friends are gone. Family members are gone. It's a traumatic moment that one has to actually live with and recover every day from, because that doormat is there. Yep. The good old thing called time and death is probably going to be on the doormat one day. How about breaking the silence? Yeah, when I say breaking the silence, I'm not talking about, exposing a lie or exposing what was hidden in the closet or exposing an agenda. No, we're not talking about that. Breaking the silence on what happened to you. Now, here's an example. Trauma. How many sexual assaults happen in the United States and no one knows about it? Law enforcement doesn't know because the victim did not report it. There are people out there that know what happened. They could be a complainant for a victim in a law enforcement report. But one has to remember, choose to file away in that limbic system and hippocampus what happened to you. Breaking the silence as you grow older. The opening statement of, I need to heal and move past it. Traditionally, mental health, conversations, they start out crappy. Psychologists, psychiatrists, ones that do the interviews. So what happened to you? What makes you think you have post-traumatic stress disorder? Bad way to start. Bad way. Seen it happen a lot. Open up with that question. The trauma informant shifts now. What happened to you versus what happened to you and what's wrong with you and why do you think you have a mental dilapidation of trauma episodic memory recall? Well, it's because you got older. You no longer have that work shield. Now it's affecting you and you know it. So now you're going to break the silence. This simply reframes the change everything movement. Moving from blame to understanding to isolation, leave me alone, to the connection of the trauma. You've got to do something about it or it's going to eat you alive. You can't go fishing because all you can think about is the trauma now. You don't have the work shield. The self-savior is being busted down like a hammer on a glass window because the self-savior was out of place while the work shield was institutionalized for decades. Now you're suffering. Now it's, got to talk about it, got to do something. It's normal. Human beings normalize asking this question. What happened to you? It's normal. It's in our families. It's in our communities. What's wrong with you? Everybody's heard it. You know you have. You can't say you haven't if you haven't asked it or did it yourself. Moving from what's wrong to the what happened to me. What's wrong with me? And what happened to me? You got to recognize what happened to you first. You got to understand it. You got to emotionally cope with it. You got to recognize that now you're an adult. You didn't know how to deal with it as a child. You had no clue. Now you've got to deal with it. Shifting the concept. Asking what's wrong with me implies an internal broke machine, a defect, or sometimes one would say a character flaw, one's character, which fuels the word shame. Why do you think protesters use that word shame against law enforcement? Put two and two together. There's a conflict there. There's trauma there. The one throwing the word out there like it's a desired end result creator is creating trauma and possibly the victim of trauma too. The what happened to me place, the source of the pain outside of the individual. Yeah, the source of the pain outside of you. What happened to create what is going on with you? Not what's wrong with you or how did this happen? No, you already know what happened to you, and now you're going to have to individually do what? Disclose to yourself, disclose to another, shift the blame, shift the content of what happened. It's too overwhelming. That's an abnormal circumstance or stance anyway. Kind of refer it to like the inherent brokenness. You got to recognize it. There's something's going on. Trauma from the life, trauma from childhood, teen, even young adult. Trauma. We have some adults out there that just aren't too adulty, more like children. We know who they are. Let me check these and make sure we're going and we're spinning and moving. Yeah, we're spinning and moving right along. Remember, the chat's open. Don't be scared. If you got any comments that you want to put about this topic in the chat, man, please do throw them out there. Let them go. This is something we're kind of keeping casual, kind of keeping slow, because it is a sensitive topic, believe it or not. Anything within the CJ sociological section or psychology, sections of the disciplines that all tie in together with the symbiotic circle. Juvenile is always one of the more intense ones. Even within law, everybody's heard, the pretext of, criminal law. Well, there's more juvenile law than there is adult criminal law. Yes. Do your own research on that. I'm not going to waste anybody's time by pulling, different federal statutes or, state code. But there's more juvenile. And those that are in the CJ system, especially, justice studies and juvenile concentrations, they'll tell you, yeah, it's 100% true. Even those in just, law enforcement practitionerships, that's a big basket of, procedural law and court standards and requirements in the courtroom when it refers to juvenile, because it's not the same as adult. Constitutional protection, even for those that are challenging those extreme traumatic moments that a juvenile experienced, and now it's turned into criminal court case. The illusion, the blame keeps people stuck on the understanding, set requirements, set plans, set methodologies. The blame. Who am I going to blame? Was it me? I got to get out of here. I got to break free. The set blame of freedom, the standard. That's called the illusion control and self-blame. It's illusionists. You're dissociating yourself. It's a paradoxism. You're practicing it. Self-blame, the one in control, the illusion of self-control. Why the blame keeps people stuck and understanding. What happened? It's all you. Well, you got to really look at the true construct. People often blame themselves because it feels safer and more secure than admitting the world is a random and dangerous place. Yes, the world is a random and dangerous place, full of danger, full of excitement, always on the go, always on the move, always having to keep eyeballs open at the back of your head and keep your head on a swivel and look behind your back. Yeah, that illusion of control, self-paradox. Let it go. Self-blame. That requires accepting vulnerability. Let it go, Bob. Let it go, Janet. You got to accept it. Well, it wasn't my fault. It was somebody else's fault. Well, okay, it may have been somebody else's fault or somebody else's intent, somebody else's actus rea based on their mens rea, but you were the victim and you were, at the time, vulnerable. Just like last night, we had mental health and criminology, criminal behavior. There's more mental health victimization from people that are not mentally ill, that are violating and creating victims out of those that have mental illness or mental dilapidation. Vulnerability, you got to accept that vulnerability. That's scary for most people because it means you have to let the trauma monster standing on the doormat walk through the door. Yeah, you've got to accept it. You were vulnerable. It happened. Not saying that it's, going to happen again, but you're going to have to accept it. It's scary, but it's the only way to stop the cycle of self-punishment and episodic memory trauma recall. Remember, the work shield's not there. The self-savior is out of practice. He's the self-savior's on vacation, man. He's on a beach somewhere. It's just you. Just you and the good old memory recall of trauma. Victimization. Within the illusion of the control, self-blame, the resilience of growing, but you still have self-blame. There's the heavy anchor of reinstatement. Yes, reinstatement, resentiment, the sentimization of what happened. I'm at fault. I'm the victim. I'm at fault. I'm the victim. What did I do? Self-blame. Blaming others helps keep us together, tethered to them. What did I do? It's my fault. That still ties you to a victimizer. It still ties you to the bad person in layman terms, the violator. Because you're questioning it. What did I do? How come they chose me? Yep, it's putting you in the same position as the violator. What did they see in me that made them want to do this to me? Again, you're tethering yourself to the victimizer more. The mechanics, understanding the mechanic of trauma and how it affects the brain and the nervous system, we can move far away from being a victim in the future. Understanding the circumstances, an active participant in our own recovery, because you technically were an active participant in your trauma. Even though you may have resisted, resilience, flight, whatever, you were still an active participant. Even though you didn't willfully walk up to someone and say, hey, victimize me so I can be an active participant. You're still there. You were the participant. So now you're going to have to move forward. The brain and the central nervous system is going to have to be triggered, set to separate yourself away from the circumstance and the victimizer. But you're like, well, I can't do it. I'm old. I'm an adult now. This happened when I was a child. Well, it's affecting you in episodic memory recall, and there's something that's triggering this. What is the trigger? You need to separate yourself from the circumstance and the active participation of others or yourself to aid in your own recovery in adulthood. You're remembering the trauma as a child. It's affecting you now. Your work shield's up. Of course, you're busy. The work shield is the work, the job. It's not an intimate trigger. It's not a smell, a sight, a conversation. What do you think domestic violence is? As stated, domestic violence and what constitutes domestic violence within state legislative laws, they're all separative. They're all detailed. They're all structured, and they reach out to multiple victims and multiple concurrences or circumstances of active partners that are emotionally tied, intimately tied. The heavy anchor. You got to pull that anchor up, get it on the boat, and super glue it back down so that it's not there every day. Simple ways to start trauma. Simple ways to start trauma-informed conversations in recovery. This is the big, spooky thing, so to say. When we opened up the show, we were talking about, specific things, but the ghost. Trauma's the ghost that doesn't go away. So you're going to have to deal with it. So how are you going to find support? How are you going to look for it? Who are you going to approach? Who are you going to confide in? That's the trigger question, right? Somatic body-based support. Since trauma is often stored, physically in the the body, it's easy to recall. It's easy to get a hold of. You may need help because you may have forgotten it. For older adults, sometimes it's difficult. Breaking the silence, that's difficult too. Reframing the symptom of the survival. Yep. Reframing the symptom of the survival for the survivor. What's the symptom of the survival? What are you doing? What's your step? Are you recognizing the heavy anchor? Are you recognizing that informed trauma starts with a conversation, an invitation versus interrogation? What's wrong with you? What happened to you? What's wrong with you, Bob? Are you okay? What's wrong with you? The voice, the inflection, the tone. You want to start an argument and get somebody pissed off real quick? Let that inflection and tone come out that way. When you are in question that somebody has been a victim of trauma and it's altering them now because they're remembering it. The invitation. Use the invitation time. Why did you do that? Why did you put yourself in that position to where you're now seeing yourself as the instigator or self-blame for what happened to you? Why did you do that? We're not talking about why did you do a specific action to, aid in your own victimization. Why did you create, the self-blame wall or dig the self-blame hole in front of the doormat of the door? Why are you doing that? It's not positive. It's not good for you. I noticed you really seemed overwhelmed earlier. Hey, Bob, you were overwhelmed. I could tell. Stress. We were on the golf course. We're supposed to be retired guys, having the life fandango. Something's going on. The invitation. That's the lack of recognition. We were in class today, and we were doing scenarios for criminology and criminalistics, type stuff. And we had a scenario of a nice big TV stolen. And then we had, the question of would society cared while the victim is crying because they lost the big screen TV and they left it in the back of their car, went into another store, somebody busted the window and took the big TV. Trauma episode. They're going to remember that forever. What gives that, person that controversial control of closure? What's the essential safety mechanism for them to feel safe to go out and buy that TV again and be out in society without risking being a victim? The same plateau for childhood trauma affects you that way as an adult. Yep, that type of person hurt me. I'm not going to hang out with them. Sound familiar? Yeah. Linguistic, visual, audible, gender, selection, heterosexual, non-heterosexual, LGBT, race, subculture, culture, creed, religion. It applies to all. Something is specific there. Separate the person from the behavior. Sometimes you got to separate yourself or, you hear that intervention, make a person separate from from the behavior. When the difficult moments are identified, the use of language, the focus, and the use of language that creates the trigger, one must shift and use language that focuses on the impact of the situation rather than the person's character. Don't attack the person. Attack the incident, the trauma, the moment. That's called the assistant survivor, the savior. Now you're teaching them again how to reopen that decade-long closed box of self-savior. You're not really the work shield, but you're the aid in building the savior shield up in the moment as an adult. If you got any questions, put them in the chat. Put them in the comments. See what's going on over here. I'm going to look at this chat. All right, we got some people watching. Throw a chat in there. Let me know you're there. Give me a thumbs up. Give me something. I see numbers on the actual live streams. I'm literally watching them right here. And now I'm aware there is a delay in the super high speed intranet. We've got that. Put a chat up. Put a thumbs up. Let me know you're active. So let's move on to a few other things. Let's go to find some interesting topics here, because we got tons of interesting topics. I mean, a whole lot of research came in on this with our research. A whole lot of research. All right. The body keeps score even when the mind forgets. What does this mean? Trauma. It doesn't just live in memories. Remember, memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. I think I see Chloe. We covered that in victimization and, the episodic memory trauma recall. Give me a thumbs up if you recall that. The brain is reconstructive, not reproductive, because you're not going out there to reproduce your own victimization. You're trying to reconstruct the actual memory of you being a victim. Trauma doesn't just survive in memories, it embeds itself into the body. It's there. Sleep disturbances, chronic stress response, rational choice theory, the biological wear and tear on the self, the character, the persistent decay over the decades of the original event. What happened? You can't sleep. You can't forget it. It's there. You're creating a new hidden vulnerability that surfaces during every major life traumatic event, and then it transitions. It turns into health challenges, high blood pressure, stress, edema, sleep apnea. Now you've got something bigger than episodic memory recall or a traumatic event. Now you've got something bigger to deal with. The health, your body takes its toll. It's like a hammer falling out of the sky every time you're triggered to remember this. The concept of implicit memory. Your body might remember, but it's not, not blocked out of your brain. You can have it there in the hippocampus limbic system forever. Unlike the explicit memory, facts, stories, things that are structured, detailed, kind of like academics, credibility, reliability, set precedents, reliability for argument in the present and the future, the need for more research, for more credibility and validity. The concept of implicit memory is stored in the nervous system and senses. You smell smoke, there's what? Fire. You smell doo-doo, there's doo-doo on the ground somewhere from an animal or a dog. I hope it's from an animal or a dog, right? We have, as human beings, sophistication. We have the loo. We have not the loo in France, okay, or, the potty. Is that better? The potty. So this is why we feel intense, that intense wave of panic or dread a specific situation or a specific moment without even knowing why, because some shape, form, or fashion, the nervous system and the senses are being triggered that this is a recall. Now the body's going to react the same way or manner that was past action after the trauma. Early childhood trauma, adult. Remember, that's what we're talking about here. We're not trying to talk about traumatic events that happen to children. We're talking about the onslaught of decades of file cabinet storage. And I know for some it's a boring topic, but it applies to every human being on the globe, or the flatty box, whatever you choose to, I don't know, Christopher Columbus feel. Who knows? Yep. The smell, the tone, a voice, patternization, select words, intimate partner relationships, domestic violence, family, mother, father, sister, brother, siblings. Yeah, that's all there. Yep, past dangers. The conscious mind has forgotten it. Ooh, because it's explicit, the facts and the stories. Yeah, it's there, but you've forgot about it because that self-savior, that work shield, that embellishment of you, loving you and your life and making yourself move forward and get off of the trauma mat that's at the door. Yeah, you've forgotten it, but it's still there in the hippocampus. Keep the engine running is what I say. Now, when I say keep the engine running, during overwhelming traumatic events or trauma, the brain's frontal lobe, which handles logic and time. Oh, remember the episode last night? Mental illness, TBI, chemical imbalance, something that has triggered hardening of the brain tissue, logic and time. Logic, go see a vampire movie, schizophrenia, hardening of the brain tissue. It's not logical, Spock. It's not logical, Captain Kirk. They're not a vampire, and they're not talking to a vampire. They're just talking to themselves. Yeah. It exists. It's real. Kind of like sand and M&Ms. Logic and time for the frontal lobe of the brain. This often goes, goes into wild trigger mode because it's supposed to protect you from harm or horror. Because you're supposed to logically recognize what situation you're in. The fight or flight. How are you going to respond? What you're going to do? The choice, the action, the words, the time that passes. It doesn't really matter because the frontal lobe of the brain, the logic, the time, concept of time is illogical in the moment because it's fight or flight. What is happening so traumatic that the frontal lobe of the brain is being obstructed for recording and documenting specific time. Kind of like the Brown shooting, right? Interviews with the students, different words. Can't tell you what the guy looked like, but I could see the big gun. Yeah. In the doorway. Literally a few feet away. Yep. The brain is, acts like a muscle, so to say. Braces for the hormones flowing into action. What's going on? The dopamine, the endorphins, the dump, the parts of the body that produce it. Right now, the struggle, the trauma, the logic of the time. Do I need dopamine? Yeah, the implicitness of it. Explicit and implicit memory. Explicit, detailed fact, logic, stories. Yeah, telling the stories of historical venue that made you and your family great, while explicitly leaving out the trauma. But implicitly, it's there. But you explicit memory choose to leave it out because you don't want anybody saying there's something wrong with me, instead of asking you what happened to you. Yep. Sleep problems. Oh my gosh, that physical thing we talked about. Yeah. The hypervigilant sentry. You're the guard, the army sentry on watch for you on the doormat of trauma's attack. Trauma's trigger re-entry into the moment of your adulthood. Because all these self-survivors and these shields and these active events in your life are dwindling down, not as fast as it used to be. If not, you're making good decisions and separating yourself from the environment of the triggers. Separating yourself from the implicit memory forced to explicit memory. A trigger to call for causation for emotional shift and change. Why do I need to remember my victimization now? Well, maybe because you need to acknowledge it, attack it. And then that term, move on, move forward. Once you've accepted that implicit and explicit still exist. The body may have learned to sleep, at different vulnerability equations. Yeah, different vulnerability equations. How you sleep, apnea. Where you eat when you go into a restaurant. You sit with your back to the window, the glass, or the door. Do you know where all the doors are in before you even sit down? Where are the exits? How many waiters, waitresses? How many people would I have to physically confront to get out of here if I have to during that hypervigilant sensory moment? My in-the-moment shield, not my work shield. It's instilled, it was created because of the trauma from childhood that's being passed to adulthood, that high alert. Watch for the threat. Once the threat no longer exists, there's no reason for that vigilant sensory stance. One self-guard. Yep. The emotional floodgate, too. Remember that. At night, you can't sleep because you can't shut the brain off. So that trauma has affected the adult now, body-wise. Cerebral cortex, central nervous system, emotion, trigger, frontal cortex, logic and the reason, the time. It's not logical to just not be able to go to sleep because of something that happened decades ago, but it's there. Yeah. That explicit, it's there. It is there. That implicit memory. Guess what? The implicit ability is now corrupted because you can't sleep. You're recalling all of it. Episodic memory recall, so the explicit factual stories are there, even though the time is missing. Time is broke. Time is dilapidated. That vigilant sensory is being intruded upon. Nighttime, the emotional floodgate. During the day, we, see or, you make ourselves use the cognitive energy to suppress anything that would distract our day. Suppress anything that would distract us from enjoying the day. Memories, pain, trauma. Yeah, it's the emotional floodgate dump at night, though. You're not busy. You're there. You're in the bed. Sometimes people are with another partner, and the emotional floodgate still opens up because one has not coped with the trauma. One has not dealt with the what happened to me versus what's wrong with me. What happened to you was you're a victim. What's wrong with you? You were a victim. And you're failing to acknowledge that. And you're letting triggers and, self-awareness of, I was part of it. I caused it. You're letting that take over when it's 100% incorrect. Hard to deal with at times, when somebody tells you to your face that you're approaching it wrong. But you're willing to go to bed and have that emotional flood of the emotional floodgate happen. Yeah. The flood of the floodgate. Yeah. At some point in time, the floodgate's going to break down. What do you think is going to happen when the floodgate breaks apart? Is one going to need psychological assessment, help, emotional? Yeah. But by then, it's too late. The anxiety, the thoughts, the racing, the nightmare of I've got to go to sleep and an emotional floodgate. So I'm going to stay awake and stay hypervigilant like it's a Freddy Krueger movie. Don't go to sleep with the guy with the knifey fingers horror movie guy will come get you. No, there is a little bit of realness to that. Not the horror guy, but the movie, but the sleep, the damage that comes in sleep. The sleep disturbance, it's a modern norm. Yeah, it's not a unheard of thing. It's not a unidentifiable thing. You can go to the medical practitioners all around the United States and take, specific sleep studies, and they'll help you identify it. Not hard. Let's see what's happening on the fantastic intro web. I didn't say intro net. I said intro web. Intro web. Put in the chat who's watching on what. We're on X, Kick, Rumble, and YouTube. Everything's keeping up pretty good. Put in the chat. I've got Rumble's chat open. I've got Kick's chat open and YouTube chat. Not really monitoring X chat. We don't really get a lot of chitter chatter on X. We get a lot of watch though. A lot of watch. Not just click, but a lot of watch, which is cool. Again, assistant researchers, Chloe Hensley, Dylan McDonald, and Zeanne Hensley, YouTube. Okay, cool. So we know it's going. Assistant researchers are up again. We're going to cover two more things, and we're going to cover some other cool stuff. So I don't want to get into chronic health issues because that would be something that somebody would, quite possibly take out of content or spectrum here. When I say chronic health issues, I mean physical health. We're not talking about, psychological or sociological or, CJ or, trauma, episodic memory recall. I don't want to, someone to think, okay, this guy's giving medical, physical well-being advice. No, we're not going to go that deep into it, but we do know it's common sense that it does cause physical dilapidation, period, done over. Even with the, emotional floodgate, lack of sleep, that's causing physical dilapidation right there. Your body's not getting the rest that it needs because your anxiety, the nightmare approach that you continue to let happen. It's kind of like the question, why does somebody stay in a bad traumatic relationship when they have the means to get out, but they still stay there? So let's talk about why stress, from decades still can affect your energy today. Now, we're not talking about, the energy to go to the gym and the energy to go, fight. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the high price of you freezing in the moment, mentally, cognitively. All right. Freeze is a response. That's a stop. It's a cognitive deal. We're not talking about, freeze, physical. Here, you're freezing cognitively based on trigger, emotion. It stops your thought process. That's sucking your frontal logic area of the brain, frontal lobe. It's sucking it dry. It's freezing the thought process. It requires massive amounts of energy to keep that brain going. It requires massive amounts of impulse, central nervous system, cerebral cortex, the whole body triggering, working together, sympathetic, empathetic. It takes a lot of energy for a human body's muscles to work in tandem, empathetic, sympathetic, to keep them mobilized. But the immobilization, emotions, triggers, memories, recall, Why do trauma survivors feel exhausted by doing nothing but remembering the trauma? Ask someone that's, close to you or someone that you know. Memory recall of trauma is exhausting. Some of you have had recalls of arguments, incidences, or moments in your life that were, physical trauma, mental trauma, and it drained you. It's exhausting, but you didn't do anything. You didn't go to the 80-pound potato bag flipping contest. You didn't do that. You were sitting in a chair remembering something, and you're burnt now. It's like a massive endorphin dump that now it's gone and everything's sucked out of you because you're remembering something from the past that happened as a childhood. Now it's affecting you in the future as an adult. It's taking all of that energy away. Everything's good. No, it's not, because you're letting it happen. The background app drain. Now, everybody thinks that, you hear the word app. It's not an IT thing. It's not a cell phone thing. It's not a dumb box thing or a computer. Think of unresolved trauma like a mobile phone app working in your head. You haven't identified it, dealt with it, identified yourself in it, your circumstances, why it happened, why you were there, why the victimizer chose you, why the victimizer did it. All the questions that one would want answered to close it so that the trauma monster would stay off the doormat of trauma through one's life. Think of it like the app running in the background of your computer, your phone, okay? But you can't close it because the computer or the phone needs it. Kind of like the computers and the desktops that we use, the cell phones to do live streams. There's a lot of stuff running in the background that we have to have in order to use all of this software with our hardware to get stuff like this out across the world. That's what trauma is doing. It's running in the background. It's hidden. You can't see it. It's sucking away your RAM for a computer. It's sucking away your battery. Yeah. And it's chewing on your bit rate, chewing on your gigs, your upload speeds, your download speeds. Here, upload, download here. It's just tearing everything up. It's that background app trauma. Decades later, even when you're on a beach relaxing, the portion of your energy is still being sucked away, chewed on, managed by trauma, because the internal threat that exists is your memory. Implicit, explicit. It's getting help to recognize how the implicit is still there, and now it's becoming explicit, logical, period. Smells explicit, detailed, because all of these aids and protective barrier are now gone. You're older, you're an adult, you recognize, and it doesn't have to be just, older, retired, geriatric. It can be 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, Some people don't even retire till they're like in their 70s. I know people that are like in their 80s still working in law enforcement. Yes. Some of them are spooky, but, some of them are okay. You don't, give them the job of, the rabbit chaser or the bulldog catcher, but, they're still capable up here in the brain, have a lot more knowledge and experience than, most of the younger, fly people have. Super people. When I say fly people, I mean like, super fly, super speed, all good. And even when you're relaxing, you're still getting that RAM and that energy sucked on. The internal threat exists, and you're allowing it to suck everything you have. You're giving it the fuel source. Yes, I know it's hard to break off, like, this guy's pointing his finger at me. Yeah, I am. What happened to you? How have you dealt with it? How have you reached out with it? It's kind of like being a substance abuse user. You got to admit there's a problem to yourself. Well, you got to admit there's something happening, and that would be traumatic memory recall. You never dealt with it, but you can remember things. Ask someone that was a sexual assault victim that did not report it. And I say ask this because a lot of people in the U.S. know somebody that was a sexual assault victim and did not report it, and they're still living with that background app running. Still there. The whisper, the stages. It's a slight whisper in the body. Learning your own body's trigger and your own body's warning systems. Frontal lobe, logic, this is happening. It's the whisper. the whisper. I'm recalling something. Implicit is now explicit. You've got to catch it. That chest tightens, breath changes, emotions, blood pressure, blood flow. The body sends small whispers of episodic memory recall and explicit memory recall, explicit details. Oh, this is implicit. You forgot it, but you smelled this. Now, let me help you remember the trauma that happened to you when you were younger, and this smell was in the area. Everybody should, trigger that because everybody's had episodic memory recall because they were in a specific area that enabled them to visually see something, audibly hear something, even taste something. We kind of had the argument about, that and trauma recall and the enforcement and agitation of society over a sauerkraut and ice cream tasting contest. Yep, redid it. It was great. Listening to the means to retrain yourself to view mild discomforts of episodic memory recall. You're going to have to deal with that. You got to listen to your own voice. Yeah, you have to. It's not crazy. It's not insane. Do you talk to yourself? Sure. That doesn't make you crazy or insane or have a mental dilapidation or mental illness. I talk to myself all the time. Oh, you were a dummy. Why did you do that? Especially, when you fall down doing something and, you thought you were going to step on something and get support, but you didn't. Oh, yep, look at me. I'm dumb. Yep. Note to self, don't do that again. You're talking to yourself. Self-recognition, the mandatory check engine light is on now. You're hearing something. You're recalling something. That app, that whisper, now that check your engine, cerebral cortex, frontal lobe, cognitive ability, episodic memory recall. What's triggering it? Get away from it. Or address it, overcome it. But you got to recognize it first. I know it's harder to say. Harder to say, but yet even harder to do. But it's harder to say for those that I need to overcome this. I need to work through this because I need to confront what happened to me, not what's wrong with me as an adult. Establishing a semantic baseline. Now, when we hear the word safe after trauma, you need to know that safe feels like a recognized unsafe. It's a safe. It's not going to happen. There's no guarantee. So it's a recognized unsafe, meaning there is something happening there and you recognize you need to do something to get yourself out of the whisper stage, the emotional ram suck, the energy take. You've got to get yourself out of it by, simply, regularly checking in with your own body when it's calm. How am I calm now? What am I doing? What's around me? Am I surrounded by squirrels and kitty cats and nice people? Or am I at work and it's triggering all of this again? Maybe time to find a new, profession or a new place of work. I didn't say new practitionership skills, but a profession and practitioner can shift and change too. Doesn't all have to be the same. Medical doctor of what? Exampler. Look at that. When again? Yeah. It's a medical. Yeah. Not all medical doctors are the same, bro. No. Just because you have a PhD, MD doesn't mean you can do everything. Do you want the medical dentist to perform brain surgery on you? Yeah. Shake that head. That's right. You have a buck brain, buck teeth, buck brain, all messed up. Yep. When you deviate the baseline, shift the baseline, the semantic baseline of memory, the safe zone, the unsafe zone. When you shift it, things happen. You can't teach the stress response. You can't teach it. You have to recognize it. And it's in intervals. It's an intervene before it escalates to the full blown out burnout that you would have, the full blown out empty gas tank, the full blown out ram suck, the full blown out energy suck, that hard crash. You got to establish the semantic baseline. You have got to recognize where you're at, what you're doing, what is the trigger, how you're going to deal with it, because if it's happening now, you will deal with it again in the future. It's not going to go away. It's not going to just say, all right, we're trauma. We're going to leave you now. Bye-bye. No. Explicit. It's buried away. It's there. Implicit. Let's kind of, remember that those, implicit emotional floodgates are being stored too. Those implicit at times of the RAM and the battery suck away your energy. are still in existence too. Still in existence. All right, again, those are my researchers. I'm going to close this out, so I'm going to bring some other stuff. Like I said, here on CJTV, we always, want to make sure that, not all the data, but enough of the data comes out, and we publish it out. And no, it's free. It's not, we're not asking anybody to pay for anything, but we, if we appreciate the source citation, if you do use it in your research, cite the actual researchers. So I'm just going to kind of open this up. What we're going to put out for this one is, the research from me and the research from, I'll open it back up again. These researchers here, you don't want mad assistant researchers at you. Trust me. Believe me, you don't want them mad. So what we're going to put out, is a simple overview. Obviously, we can't cover all of this in one live stream. We'd be here for hours. I mean, if not half the dadgum day. But we're putting a lot of stuff out, routinely through white paper, research, release, stuff that is truly peer reviewed, not just some junk that somebody put together and said, hey, believe me and listen to me. This will be loaded up into MediaFire. And for MediaFire, it's at the YouTube side, right up here up top, right there. Just go to YouTube. Facebook, not YouTube. Go to Facebook. Dr. Mike Gurley, CJTV, capital C, lower JTV. Get in, friend the show. I've made it under me, but, my name, but it's still, for the show. Friend the show. Get some of these recent updates. Now, 364 downloads of, the show's documentation and, data. That just shows that, people are paying attention. People have not just a curiosity, but a genuine scholarly interest for stuff like this, because we're not doom scrolling. We're not going to go take from every platform out there in the world and try to look, watch us. We're going to report the world to you in 30 minutes or 20 minutes. No, we're not doing that. There are plenty of other people out there plagiarizing and stealing everybody else's work to put it out there and, get a subscriber or a thumbs up or a likey hit. No, we're not doing that here. Here it's pure academic. It's pure something that's going to hopefully make the individual, the researcher, the student, the practitioner better at what they're doing. A lot better. The GoFundMe for 2026 semester, still going. I'll leave that up. Not going to beat it in the dirt, but, take a phone. Those of you that know about it, share the link. Share it, shift it around. If you want the link, email me right here in the ticker. Well, it's not in the ticker. It's not moving. So drmikeleeg@gmail.com. And if you want to email one of the researchers with specific topics, rewind the video to where you can get that again up there, stop it, and send an email. Ask them a question. So to kind of close this out, because I don't want to take everybody's night, take everybody's time away, just kind of remember why healing exists. What does it mean? What is the forgotten realm or the pretending it didn't happen? How do they separate from each other? Well, it's not explicit, it's implicit. You forgot, but it's going to be explicit. You can't pretend it didn't happen because you're having a emotional breakdown, an emotional change. The floodgates, the zap of the battery. Why is it happening? It happened. It happened years ago, months ago, decades ago. Who knows when it happened? The emotional healing's got to start somewhere. The post-traumatic growth. Yeah, post-traumatic growth grows and turns pain into purpose. Yes, it does. But what means and what level of purpose? What's the purpose and the direction of the purpose? Conquer, live, survive, self-betterment, or episodic memory recall so that you can be emotionally damaged? I said it, emotionally damaged, because you're creating the emotional damage. You're allowing the floodgate to stay open. You're not kicking the trauma monster off the front door, off the trauma doormat. Supportive administration, supportive relationships, that's always key. Rewrite your own story. Rewrite your own story to where you're not a new victim. Rewrite your own story to where the people that you surround yourself with are not victimizers. They're not seeking to victimize you. And as I said, we would be here for hours if we covered everything, especially if I had to cover everything that the assistant researchers give me. Good grief. Be here for like 12 hours talking about one subject. You got to understand why it's not ever. You got to understand when it's never. You got to understand why it's not acceptable to believe that it's too late to speak about what happened so that you can seek change. Hate to break the news to you. Takes guts, takes resilience, perseverance, recognition that something did happen and it's controlling you right now. The floodgates are opening. Don't let it happen. And we didn't get real deep into explicit, detailed, types of trauma. Trauma is what trauma is. One's own identification of this is a traumatic incident that I am in. This is a traumatic incident that I survived. That's one's own self-defining, explicit frontal lobe, logical cortex construct. Can't construct, what trauma is for everybody. Some people grow up in violent atmospheres, so domestic violence is not trauma for them. It's normal. It's okay. Physical, linguistic, psychological. Moving from surviving your past. Yeah. Is the past truly in your past, or is it truly living in your present? Because you haven't healed from it. Healing isn't about erasing it. It's about changing one's relationship with the trauma, the relationship you have to the trauma. I'm not going to get rid of it. It happened. It's not fake. It's not Casper the Ghost. It happened. Suddenly that implicit trauma is now explicit now for some of you watching this. And you're realizing, well, yep, the guy's got a point. I never did anything. Because we could be here for hours talking about the different plateaus of cognitive reasoning and peer review and statistic research and meta-analysis, qualitative, but it's just research. That's not the single victim. That's not the single person that has developed into an adult after living through childhood trauma. And now the childhood trauma is explicit as explicit gets because we understand the words that were used, the defining means, the drive, the reason, the mens rea, the actus rea, because you've lived through some of it already yourself. Again, as an adult, you know just exactly what happened and why. The question to close this out isn't whether the damage occurred or the trauma occurred. I'm not trying to, seek validity for it because it's affecting you. Something happened. It's whether the transformation remains. Is it possible at any age? Can you stop the floodgate, stop the psychological, the manic movement, the depression, the physical dilapidative change, blood pressure, sleep, stress? Can you deal with it at any age? Child, adult, senior citizen? Well, it's up to you individually. It's up to you and the amount of energy that you put into seeking healing, seeking change. You're the one that can close your own door or keep it open and let the monster of trauma back in. Some people can help you. Some people will be there to assist, but they're not going to shut the door for you. They're definitely not going to open the door for you. They're just going to be a trigger. Society is a trigger. And when I say they, I mean they're, they, them. Hate those words. The ones that you associate yourself with that are the floodgate triggers, the emotional disaster. Yep, emotional disasters. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's been a pretty good time. Hour and 15 minutes, but we still covered and scraped just the top. One grain of sand on the beach. Remember, this is not a substitute for education. It's not a substitute for a university or college classroom. It is not. You want to learn more? That's great. We can help you and guide you to correct places, institutions. Just send us an email. If you got topics that you want to discuss, send it to us in an email. And without further ado, thanks for showing up and have a fantastic, fantastic evening. Oh, yeah, by the way, we're taking tomorrow off, but we'll be back on Friday. Friday, 6:30 p.m. Friday, 6:30 p.m. No, never mind. Friday, 2 p.m. Friday, 2 p.m. with a new topic. Watch out for it. It'll be pretty good. yourself with that are the floodgate triggers.